Hey everybody, I am back with another video. I don't think it's going to be too long. We'll see what happens. I never really rehearse or anything, I just talk. I wanted to talk a little bit today about, was it hard or is it hard adjusting to living in a new country or in a new place? I think it's different when you're in the United States and you just move to another state. It's not, of course, and it's an adjustment, but I think it's more of an adjustment when you move to another country. Um, Before I moved to Sweden, I think we had talked about it before, me and my husband, but we never really had settled on when or anything like that. It kind of just happened. It was like a spur of the moment type of thing. Um, and it was there was kind of like that shock factor for a while that it was just in my head I was didn't really grasp what the hell I was doing or what was going on. I just kind of went with the flow. So in 2017 is when I started this whole process to come to Sweden. Around February of 2017, my husband left and went back to Sweden. I was still in the United States. I continued working, and because I had to get rid of the car and the apartment and pretty much sell everything we had and fit whatever of my life I could into 2 suitcases and a carry-on. And that was an adjustment in the first part, because you're taking, whatever you can fit your whole entire life, putting it into a suitcase and just kind of going and hoping, praying that you didn't forget anything, and anything important. And after my husband was, like I said, was in February, he left to go to Sweden. So for another month and a half, I lived in our apartment. And I was kind of getting rid of things and just figuring things out. And then I moved in with my mother until I was ready to go to Sweden. And I continued working. Up until the last week that I left for Sweden, because I needed the money. I wasn't going to go to a job in Sweden. And I just really liked my job, and I just wanted to just work, and working kind of helped me mentally get okay with what was happening instead of just sitting there waiting. My family was not happy. They were angry. They were confused. It happened really fast. My mother wouldn't talk to me for almost the whole time that I was living with her. Nobody thought I would make it. Everybody thought I would be back. There was zero faith. And I don't think anybody was happy for me, because I was leaving and they weren't happy about it. It was the last 2 weeks that my mother started to talk to me, because I kind of forced her to, because it was a very awkward situation when you're sitting in a living room and your mother's sitting in the bedroom and nobody's talking. It was very awkward and confusing, and I was having mental breakdowns and shit, and it was stressful. I didn't have my husband there, so it was just hard. And like I said, I continued working up until the end of May, and then I left for Sweden in June, middle of June. So which gave me enough time to kind of get my shit together. And I didn't have a permanent resident or anything like that. I had like my my visa was in the process. So I went to Sweden in 2017, of like June of 2017. And everything was okay. I was slowly adjusting. It was hard because, like I said, I didn't really speak the language. I really didn't. I didn't really know anybody. I didn't. I couldn't read really the language. So I was trying to do as much as I could there with like Duolingo and things like that. Different things, and trying to start reading as much Swedish as I could, and watching TV and the news, and report and things like that to kind of help me. And we were trying to go through this whole visa process, and they had told me that it was okay that I stay in Sweden while my visa process was in the process. That was like a word of mouth type of thing. It wasn't in writing. So when they were getting ready to finalize my visa process, they told me I had to go back to America, and they told me I had 2 weeks to leave, and it was right around Christmas. So I left Sweden December 31st, New Year's Eve, and I had to go back to America and wait for my process to be finalized. When I left out of Denmark, Copenhagen. And when I got to the airport and I gave them my passport, they said, you've been, because when I first came into Europe, I flew into Denmark. So therefore, Denmark was the person who stamped my passport, not Sweden. So when I was leaving Denmark, it looked like I had been in Denmark for over 6 months. And that was not good. It looked like I was, it was like a lapse in my visa. My like tourist visa or whatever. And I tried to explain to them, like, Sweden said it was okay that I was allowed to be there, and they're like, but you're in Denmark. And I didn't think about that part. And they're like, well, the officers are going to come and take you in the back, the passport control officers. And I was just like, oh, great. And I asked them, like, am I going to miss my flight? And they're like, I don't know, maybe. They're like yelling at me. They're like, you shouldn't have been here. You shouldn't. If you're gonna fly into Sweden next time, don't fly into Denmark. They're just going on and on. And I'm like, I'm sorry. And they're like, you don't have any paperwork with you proving that you're going through this process. And I'm like, I didn't think about any of that shit. And I'm like, I'm sorry. They're like, we have to call Sweden and ask them what's going on. So I'm sitting in like the passport control office while they call Sweden and ask them what's going on, if I really had a visa in process. And I did, and they yelled at me, and then they let me go. And I ran as fast as I could to my gate because I was scared they were going to change their mind. And I got there about 5 minutes before they boarded, because I told them, like, I'm leaving anyways. They're like, but it doesn't matter. They were pissed. But, I mean, I understand now. I didn't give them any trouble or anything like that. I was just like, whatever, And it was funny because I didn't have a phone. There was no way I could contact my husband if they canceled my flight, or I missed my flight. So that would have been an interesting situation, because I didn't know his phone number or anything like that. Yeah, I got on the flight. That was the first time I had flown by myself, so that was a little bit interestingly scary. But it went smooth. It was okay. And I flew into Fort Lauderdale, I think. Yeah. Or Orlando. No, it was Fort Lauderdale International in Florida. And my brothers picked me up, and I surprised my mom for New Year's Eve, and she was probably in shock. And I was in America until the beginning of March. During that process, I had to also fly to Washington, D.C. for them to take my photo. I was there for 2 days, and then fly back to Florida and just basically wait for them to finish my whole process. And then about 2 or 3 weeks, like the middle of February is when I got my visa, my permanent resident card, and I was able to fly back to Europe. So I left America March 4th, 2017. and 18. And I've been here ever since. Um, I think that whole process was crazy. It took over a year, and it was stressful, and um, we were kind of sure that it was going to be okay, that I was going to get my visa. It was just a long process, and I couldn't work, so I was out of work for like a year. That was stressful. That was an adjustment because I had been working my whole, for a very, very long time. And all of a sudden you go from being independent to being dependent on another person, and that's stressful, at least for me, because I've always been very independent. And now I'm dependent on, like when I first moved to Sweden, I was dependent on people to take me places and read for me and speak for me, and that was so weird. That was crazy because you have no other choice but to depend on somebody else. Because unless you learn the language, you're just going to have to depend on people to do things for you. And I'm very independent. So I wanted to learn as much as I could, as fast as I could, so that I could start doing things for myself. So it was so many things to adjust to learning how to use roundabouts, because the city that I came from in Florida, we had one and nobody knew how to use it. So you have to adjust to kind of how they drive in Sweden, in Europe. You have to adjust to learning a new language, reading, writing, speaking in a new language, adjust to a new culture. It's still an adjustment. I'm getting there, of course, but it's still, an adjustment. And now with COVID, it's a completely different kind of adjustment. You're home. You're not in contact with people. You can't meet people. And it's it kind of like 2 steps backwards instead of 2 steps forward when you move to another country. And it was like I was just becoming okay with being here, and then all of a sudden COVID struck, and now I'm like, again, like it started all over again. The change and everything. But yeah, it hasn't been too bad. It's easy to adjust to I think that if you, I really wanted to do this because I didn't want any regrets in my life. I wanted a new adventure. I wanted the opportunity because, how many people get the opportunity to move to a new country, to move to Europe or move to the United States? You don't get that opportunity every day. So I figured if I didn't take it, it would be stupid to not try. And I felt that I didn't want to go through my life regretting, I should have tried. I should have done that, but I was afraid. I didn't want to let fear stand in the way of me living my life. And it was hard leaving my family. Like I said, they were really angry. And that was really hard. But they're okay now. They're sad because I'm not there, but they're okay. And they're happy for me and the fact that I'm living my life and I'm doing what I want to do. And I'm able to do it. And that makes me feel better. Because I talked to my brother the other day, and he's like, I was like, I'm stressed. This was a couple months ago or something. I'm like, I'm stressed, and I don't know if I made the right decision and everything. And he's like, you did. He goes, not everybody, like he said the same thing I said, not everybody gets the opportunity to move to another country. And you did, and you took it. And he said, that's the coolest thing. He goes, it's amazing. He goes, I don't know that I could have done it. But it's so cool that you did. So that made me feel better. So yeah, that's pretty much my little thing on adjusting. If you have any comments or questions, leave them and I'll try to answer them for you. Yeah, like I said, everything seems to be okay so far. It's a little crap with COVID, but I think everybody is just so over it. But anyways, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week. It's Tuesday, December 15th here in Sweden, and it's 22 minutes past 10 in the morning, so it's early. But yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day and week if I don't talk to you again. Hi,